Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the IMAA's Insights and Innovation series for this fine Monday. And it's good that the sun is shining and we're all, out and about after our lockdowns. Today, we have the absolute pleasure of our friends from LinkedIn joining us, and they've always got interesting research. And today, I think is something really quite pointed. It's the resilient SMBs. As this sector is emerging and is absolutely booming, everyone is investing within their own business, and it's a real opportunity and a new opportunity for all indies. I will hand over to the amazing Sarah Fuller, Robin, and also Michael, who have got three separate parts for this presentation. And I better not talk too much because Sarah's very conscious of the time that I chew up in my introduction. So questions into the question box, and without further ado, I'll hand over to the amazing Sarah.
Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate it, and thank you everyone for being here today. I am just going to start share screening with you all. What's the wrong side, isn't it? Is that better?
Yep.
Amazing. Perfect. So we have Team LinkedIn here today to take you through how the impacts of the past year have helped given rise to a new and more resilient Australian SMB. This new and originally sourced research is hot off the press, and it provides a snapshot of where SMBs are at, what their sentiment is in terms of their future, and how they are looking to invest to fuel this growth. Before we get started, I would just like to do an acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So I am incredibly fortunate to be co-presenting today with LinkedIn's Head of Enterprise, Michael Levine, and LinkedIn's Content Solutions Consultant for APAC, Robin O'Connell. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Sarah Fuller, and I am the Independent Agency Lead for ANZ. We also have the independent agency lead for APAC, Helen Girdlestone, with us as well, who will be moderating the Q&A throughout. So please just drop your questions in there if you do have any. As a valued partner of the IMAA, we'll be providing first-hand access to this original research to the members today. And typically this research is verticalized. So with your brand clientele in mind and the 45 minutes allocated, we have had to condense the research findings. However, we will provide a complete presentation as a follow-up at the end. And in terms of an agenda today, we really want to make sure that we are covering the changes identified in SMBs, the opportunity they represent for marketers, with a focus on FinServ and Tech as that next growth frontier for SMBs, and our recommendations on how to approach the opportunity effectively. There's really no point in today if we don't come away with some insights to action and how you can put that into place for your own businesses, but more so for your clients who are targeting that SMB space as well. So for now, I am going to pass over to Michael to take you through the great SMB research, the state of Australian SMBs, and understanding the new resilient SMB.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you all. Thanks for joining us today. As you'll see from the research that we built, it's pretty obvious that we find ourselves at a very specific and unique moment in time, one marked by a period of extraordinary challenges over the last few years, but also now one with a sense of emerging opportunity. And that's why we're calling this the Great SMB Reset. You've probably heard of the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffle. And in the same way that those trends really speak to the movement in the talent and hiring marketplace, we believe there's a similar trend happening within the SMB landscape. So as we'll share today, the SMB Reset has a really broad range of implications for marketers and people looking to reach the SMB audience. But we wanted to start with these key stats and key findings from our research, that 70% of SMBs are planning to increase their spend in technology and 60% on financial services partners. it's an unprecedented level of demand, really. So the need for us to be visible and a willing ally to support SMBs is something that we'll talk a lot about over the next half hour or so. So why do we care so much about the SMB audience? Well, they are a huge and significant part of our national economy. They represent 7.6 million of Australia's jobs and 55% of our GDP, and their health is really integral to our nation's recovery. Despite all of the hardship of the last few years, as we'll see, Aussie SMBs have really pivoted, adapted their strategies, and forged a new path forward. And so, this audience is an incredibly valuable one, and how we best support them for long-term growth is really a critical part of today's findings. Let's quickly talk through methodology. There's always at least one or two people in the room who want to understand how the research was built and put together. In order to give a comprehensive and detailed view, we wanted to partner with Kantar for an independent, quantitative as well as qualitative research study that covers the depth and breadth of the Aussie SMB landscape. So we surveyed SMBs across 28 different sectors, with no individual sector accounting for more than 10% of the total responses. So a really healthy mix of industries are represented in this research. As we go, we'll also supplement that research with LinkedIn's own first-party member data. So you'll see insights from SMBs on our platform around what they're reading, what they're engaging with. And just to be clear, when we talk about SMBs today, we're talking about those companies with between 1 to 200 employees. Cool. So what did our research reveal? Well, we saw a few key themes really emerge. The first is that the challenges of the last year have made SMBs rationalize their businesses. They've reduced costs and really focused on where opportunities lie for them. The second is that there are signs of a resurgent SMB sector, both in our research, but also what we're seeing on LinkedIn. Third, that Aussie SMBs are going to emerge from this time with a much stronger understanding of their businesses and the need to do things differently. And finally, that SMBs are aware of the need to embrace new technology, new financial services partners, and we also have a cut of this research, as Sarah mentioned, for government and to embrace government funding and support models in order to fuel their growth. And they're actively in market for these services today. But before we look to the future, we wanted to understand where it is that we find ourselves. And we know from our own experience that the pandemic impacted each one of us and our businesses in some way. But let's start with an understanding of the Aussie SMB landscape today. And what our research found is that it's been a surprisingly mixed time. So it won't surprise you to see that 71% of businesses experience slowdowns or closures as a result of the pandemic, but it may surprise you to see that 40% actually had a positive sentiment about the past year, and that 38% said that their businesses fared better last year than in an average year. So it's clearly a much more mixed marketplace with different conditions for each. All in all, though, the SMB market has become cautiously optimistic, and this is what we see also reflected on LinkedIn activity. So let's take a quick look at that now. The SMB audience on LinkedIn is active and thriving. We have over 2 million members on Australia who work in Aussie SMBs. And when we took a look at the Australian Bureau of Statistics data around all new SMBs that had been created in the last year, we found that 85% of all new SMBs are registered also on LinkedIn. And they join a much bigger cohort of over 300,000 SMB businesses on LinkedIn in Australia. But what's perhaps more interesting than those numbers is the growth rates. And what we found is that in the last year, growth rates went from 25% in 2020 up to 40% in 2021. We also saw that these audiences are engaging much more on our platform. That means they're reading content, liking, sharing, commenting, in the news feed, in groups, they're connecting with one another at much higher rates. That's up 15% in 2021. I also wanted to share with you a little context around the specific growth areas and opportunities within SMBs. For those of us who are looking to target SMBs by industry, which is a targeting facet that LinkedIn does offer. You'll see here on the left what the fastest growing new SMBs are according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics. And then on the right, you'll see that same list based on new Aussie SMBs on the LinkedIn platform. And you can see there's growing demand across education, financial services, communications, and IT related services. SMBs are also more likely to be engaged with content on LinkedIn versus their peers in larger businesses, in enterprise businesses. And we assume that's because a lot of Aussie SMBs don't have the same access internally within their four walls to the content that they need in order to help them grow. So we see evergreen topics on LinkedIn like business ideas and coaching, as well as more timely topics like regulatory affairs and value investing. And Robin will walk you through an understanding of what does that mean for you and the brands that you work with in terms of how they should think about their content and their content marketing on LinkedIn. However, the growing SMB activity on our platform isn't necessarily a surprise to us at LinkedIn because this is an audience that we care really deeply about. We've built out a local editorial team here in Australia. We now have a number of journalists working for LinkedIn. And they craft newsletters, they look at marketplace trends, they think about inspirational thought leadership, and they also create live events and interviews that they broadcast on the platform to engage with the SMB audience. It's also just really important to note the different mindset of how SMBs behave on LinkedIn versus other social platforms. So it's no surprise that there's a large volume of SMBs who are active on platforms like Instagram, but when they're there, they're really looking to engage with their own fans and followers. So I'm sure you'd have this experience yourselves managing your own independent agency. You're looking to build an audience, to think about your own brand identity. But when you're on LinkedIn as a small business owner, you're looking up and out. You're looking to connect with partners, with industry vendors, and providers who can really help you grow. And I think Mike York is a perfect example of that. Mike is the Chief Marketing Officer at an Aussie SMB up in Brisbane called Little Hinges. And Little Hinges do property tech. They do virtual tours of properties. And Mike here, I think, really demonstrates that different mindset of thinking about the growth of his business and who can help him achieve that when he's on LinkedIn. We also saw this attitude reflected in our own research findings, and I'm going to pass back now to Sarah, who's going to walk you through the mindset of SMBs today and the opportunities across some of those different industries that we talked about.
Do you want to do these 3 slides and then I'll take through the FinServ and Tech, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we found is that at the start of the pandemic is that SMBs are really looking to cut costs. And we mentioned before that the cost-cutting exercise that they went through was a really critical part of streamlining their businesses. And when we took a deeper dive into where costs, efficiencies were gained, it was largely around operating, resourcing, and rent. So the ability to move to flex remote working, the shift to online business models, as well as staffing and other cutbacks. But what we see today is, as I mentioned, a much better understanding of where SMBs are now. 71% saying that they have a better understanding and 63% saying that they're positive about the future. When we did this research, we saw that 81% was still a little uncertain about their future, but that was just before lockdowns started to lift in the eastern states. And so we would imagine that that uncertainty number will continue to come down as business storefronts are now reopening. And then finally, we wanted to understand more specifically the areas of growth that they're looking to invest in. Business strategy came across as the number one. So really thinking about how are they looking to invest in new frameworks and new models of working, with 60% stating business strategy as their number one area of investment, either in terms of time or money. And then the other very clear trend is this move to a digital way of working, with investments being made across software, digitization, technology services, and hardware in order to power SMBs businesses moving forward. So a really good time if you're in technology to be marketing your products and services as well. With that, I'll pass to Fuller.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So now that we have a really deep understanding of the SMB landscape and how we're feeling as a whole, really what I wanted to take you through today is that next wave of SMB growth really being dependent on a successful partnership for SMBs with FinServ and Tech. Our survey uncovered some interesting changes in how they intend to engage with both these sectors. And for today, I'm going to deep dive into FinServ and Tech, but really, if you don't work with a partner in FinServ or Tech, these insights and the actions that Robin will take you through, we will cover in the next two sections. They can be replicated as a foundational strategy for all verticals. So with these rich insights in mind, you can really be the consultant to your existing and prospective clients on what are the priorities for the high-value SMB audience. For FinServ, we see that a significantly higher proportion of SMBs are planning to deepen their engagement with financial services to really set them up for future growth. This is up more than 10% from last year, which we had already seen increase in FinServ spends to weather that initial impact of the pandemic. This year, 60% of SMBs are planning to increase their use of financial services, such as banking and insurance, and close to 1/5 are planning to increase this use a lot or significantly. This increased demand is especially interesting in the current context, which we've outlined on the left of this graph. SMBs are already well aware of day-to-day financial services, with high penetration of digital banking and merchant services. However, on the right, we look at the opportunity for growth, which is particularly healthy for business loans and other commercial services. A relatively small percentage of SMBs are using these services today, but there is increasingly strong consideration for advisory services that will understand SMBs' changing needs and help them navigate their financial future. So in line with this, in terms of key focus areas, SMBs are prioritising 5 key FinServ areas for continued and new investment. Digital banking, including both online and mobile, are leading the charts as priority, sitting at both 46% and 45% respectively. This is closely followed by debit, business, and credit cards, sitting at 41%, and then commercial services and asset management around 30% to 37%, which are really starting to feature strongly. So as a key takeaway for you and your clients, if your clients provide products or services in these areas, now is the time to be communicating that to existing and prospective customers as they look to continue or establish new investments in this area. So now switching into technology. This year, 70% of SMBs are planning to increase their tech spend. This is really demonstrating the sheer scale of opportunity for tech vendors supporting the SMB sector. Of these, 18% are planning to increase their spend significantly, and only 10% are looking to reduce spend. Now, conversely, this is compared to 15% of these that were reducing their spend in 2020. So we're in a much better place this year. Looking at technology that SMBs are already engaging with, on the left-hand side of this graphic, you can see that SMBs are really embracing increasingly sophisticated technologies. Cloud computing, data analytics, and even the Internet of Things and blockchain have significant market penetration. Looking at the technology that is not yet used, but it's on the radar of SMBs, this is on the right-hand side of this table, you can see that there will be a strong demand in areas such as e-commerce, supply chain management, and CRM. Now, these are rich insights to note when planning future strategies and solutions for your tech clients that are targeting SMBs. Now, beyond this ongoing shift, and what's important for your clients' immediate consideration and your marketing programs is where are SMBs investing now when it comes to technology. And what we see is that there'll be strong investment across CRM and cloud computing, and data analytics is also front of mind. And despite its relatively high uptake, with 82% saying that they are already using e-invoicing, over a third of SMBs are ramping up their investment in this space. And finally, reflecting the shift in retail, e-commerce rounds out our top 5 priorities for tech areas for SMBs for continued and new investment. Again, these are rich insights that if you are working with clients in this space, this is where you should be communicating to your audience and being able to answer those pain points in these areas. So with many SMBs rethinking business in personal finance and business finance and actively in market for technology, where are they seeking information? So let's take a look at a wide range of their offline and online sources that inform their decisions, which we have broken down by each vertical again. When it comes to financial services products, industry sources such as company website and financial representatives rank highly. What's interesting is that there's no clear ranking between the two. These factors are all equally important, sitting around 32 to 37%. This is then followed by digital sources, with LinkedIn the #1 digital destination used for FinServ beyond search. Google sitting around 39%, and social channels, LinkedIn at 24% and Facebook at 21%. And then we have peers, with both industry peers and friends and family playing a key role in the decision-making process. We then tried to understand which platforms they trust when they're seeking FinServ partners. Industry sources such as finance reps and company websites still come out at top. Similarly, trusted advisors in the professional and personal network remains consistently high. However, on digital platforms, we see a strong shift in LinkedIn as the home of business, with LinkedIn twice as trusted as Instagram and Facebook, and on par with Google search. Now, this is quite consistent with other work that we have done, where LinkedIn has consistently been rated ahead of other digital platforms on the Edelman Shine, Trust Barometer, and Business Insider report as well. So at a high level, beyond channel choice, we saw 3 deciding factors that FinServ clients should be aware of when marketing to SMBs. If there's a takeout from today, this is definitely going to be it. These areas become the battleground where purchasers will decide on the vendor or partner based on their ability to support implementation, which was the key factor when deciding on a partner, sitting at 79%. And no huge surprises there, because for SMBs, it's about accessibility, the ease of use, or easy to train their teams on. Second was being price competitive with value, sitting at around 69%. And then a brand that they can trust, sitting at 52% as a key factor. When people choose a vendor, they are more likely to choose a brand that they know and have some degree of trust. So in summary, if you are working with clients in the FinServ space, they are going to win only by ensuring that your positioning and messaging address these needs. Now switching over to technology, where do SMBs research technology? LinkedIn is the #1 social source of information. It's used by 13% more SMBs than any other social network. And for marketers, it's worth noting that digital platforms and peer networks rank above a company's website as a source of SMBs to find technology information. Switching into LinkedIn, again, being that ranks highly with trust and being a critical factor, we are twice as trusted as Instagram and Facebook for SMBs. Industry peers also rank highly as a trusted source of information. And we also saw that, and we know it's important to consider trust when looking at which platform you will use to engage with SMBs, as we know this has a halo effect on the success of your marketing initiatives. Again, the key takeaway, what are the main factors that are influencing, or what are the barriers getting in the way of an SMB selecting a technology partner? We know more about SMBs' intent to buy, where they're researching technology, the sources that they trust, but what are those perceived barriers? Accessibility, security, and IT are seen by SMBs as the top challenges when implementing tech within their org. For accessibility, no huge surprises here. It makes a lot of sense, as they just don't simply have the same specialist technology talent for implementation and maintenance as an enterprise business. And security, no surprises with cybersecurity risks, data protection, and internal security as well. So as the biggest barriers to purchase for small businesses, these areas are key for how we speak to and engage with SMBs going forward, and it's going to be critical for success. So to recap in this section, SMBs are anticipating an increase to their spend for both FinServ and Tech. Providers need to communicate their solutions in this space in a really authentic and relevant way. And with the greatest barriers of FinServ and Tech in mind for SMBs, implementation, value and brand, accessibility, security, and IT, marketers need to be communicating their services in relevant channels, but also tailoring solutions and information that speak to these pain points. So it's an extraordinary time, particularly for disruption and going against the existing status quo, but SMBs also have more choices than ever before. And it's an open marketplace with both traditional and newer platforms vying for their attention. So the winners are really going to be those who can get closer to SMBs and understand their evolving needs, connect and communicate for inspire advocacy, but also build trust and invest in the long term. I'm now going to pass over to Robin, who is going to share more on how you can take these insights and put them into action. This is the juicy part. And remembering that the foundation of these marketing strategies, they can be applied for all clients outside of these two sectors. The same exercise and foundation still applies. Over to you, Robin.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah. And great to meet everyone on the line. My name is Robin O'Connell. I'm a content solutions consultant here at LinkedIn. CSC, another acronym to remember. Basically, it means that I help some of our larger LinkedIn clients get the most out of their content marketing strategy. And that is exactly what we're going to be talking about over the next few slides. So thanks to Sarah and to Michael, we've been walked through some incredible insights as it relates to the Australian small business sector. But I think there's probably still one question remaining. And that is, how do we translate what we've just learned? How do we translate these insights into an actionable strategy to reach and engage small businesses? And that is exactly what we're going to talk about. So I think as we think about, the research and what we've just found, and as we consider some of the steps that you now see on screen, it's important to think about some of the key takeaways and basically how those takeaways translate into the steps that we should take. And the first thing that I would start with, the #1 takeaway here, is the fact that the SMB segment has changed drastically over the last 2 years, right? There's a sense of positivity and there's a real future focus. And of course, there's opportunity in the segment. So as a first step, it's really important for us to pause and to think about this unique segment and this unique opportunity. That's step one, is to seize this unique moment in time. Step two, then, as I said, the small business landscape has changed quite a bit, right? It's pretty different right now. There were more net new SMBs in 2021 in Australia than any previous year. So what we need to do is rethink our reach and rethink the ways that we reach a new and evolving segment. And that's step two. Step three is all about the fact that the priorities of small businesses have changed, right? Sarah just walked us through some pretty specific criteria that SMBs are saying that they judge their potential partners and potential vendors on. So if we can craft our messaging and our content and our positioning around those criteria, we are going to be moving towards success. So that's number three, is making that messaging as pointy and as relevant as possible. And then number four, the final one, is built around the takeaway that brand really is more important than ever. So it's a key consideration for purchase and for vendor choice right now, but we also know that it is the means by which we grow over the long term. And so building brand first is a really important step as well, and rounds us out at step four. So if we were to summarize how we would take this research and translate it into steps, it would be those four key steps. And so it's really key that we think along these lines. But what we're going to do is just walk through each one in a little bit more detail and show you some great examples of how we can do just that. And we'll start with that first step I mentioned, seizing this unique opportunity. So typically we see that about 20% of businesses and B2B buyers are in market over the course of an entire year for a product or service. And that's according to the latest B2B Institute research, which is the LinkedIn think tank. That's typically, and that's globally, about 20%. This research, right, looking specifically at SMBs in Australia, we're seeing that about 60% of Australian SMBs are planning on investing in financial services, and 70% are planning on investing in technology. Okay, so that's 3 times higher than average. And that's what we mean when we say there is a really big opportunity in small business right now in Australia. And so that is a really important focal point for us. So the question we want to ask ourselves is, how do we pursue this opportunity? And how do we reach this much larger than normal market? And one of the first things that we want to consider is what you see on screen right now. And that is the fact that the average buying cycle is much shorter for a small business than for their larger enterprise cousins, right? So you'll see that about 90% of SMBs will make a purchase decision within just 3 months. That's a really short time frame for a B2B purchase. So in order for us to take advantage of this unique opportunity, we need to recognize that SMBs act quicker. What that means is, as we consult with our clients and as we talk to them about their strategy for reaching small business, we need to make sure that the strategy is consistent and that we're in market with messaging consistently throughout the year. That always on mentality and that always on strategy means that you are going to be very well positioned to take advantage of the opportunity when these small businesses act quickly and act decisively. And so that's number one, that is seizing this unique opportunity. The second step that we mentioned is rethinking reach. And the 2 stats I think it's really important to consider here are the ones that you see on the right-hand side of the screen. So almost half, 48% of small business employees have a large degree of influence on the purchase decision. What that means is that it's really important to target broad and not to over-index our targeting on seniority, on function within the SMB segment. We should think broadly because of the fact that that purchase power is diffused within a small business organization. And the second consideration there is that there's a 44% increase in the number of SMBs over the past 12 months. What that means is, previous targeting methods, old ABM lists, they're in danger of being out of date pretty quickly. And so when we think about our reach, considering these stats, and when I say rethink reach, really what I mean is we need to reach broadly into the segment. It's all about targeting broadly when it comes to SMBs, because that will allow you to reach new and existing small businesses, all purchase decision makers, and also in-market and out-of-market buyers. So that's really, really key. And a very cool way that LinkedIn allows you to follow this step is by giving you access to a very wide range of first-party data when it comes to targeting, which means that you can pretty easily target more than 317,000 small business companies. And by targeting those companies, you then have access to more than 2 million Australian SMB employees. And so that length and that width of data gives you access to huge reach, but because it's first party data and it's self-identified, it means you can target broadly and you can target with confidence to members in the right mindset when they are thinking about their business. As Michael mentioned at the start of this presentation, the way they engage on LinkedIn is very different to other platforms. So we seize the unique opportunity and we create that SMB strategy. We target broadly into the SMB segment. And then the next question is, once we reach small businesses, what do we want to reach them with? And Sarah built this out really, really well in the last section. Considering how SMB priorities have changed, if your client wants to be successful in the SMB category, they want to be recognized as a provider of choice. And because small businesses in Australia have called out very specific areas they consider when they think about a financial services provider or they think about a technology vendor, we want to message around these 3 key factors in order to be seen as a provider of choice. And so that is what making messaging relevant is all about. What we're going to do now is we'll just walk through 3 examples of LinkedIn content that we've seen that have appeared on top trending lists over the past 12 months and are built around these factors. And the first one that you're starting to see on screen now is from CBA. What they do really well is they create content based on this implementation consideration. The content follows best practice because it's a short video format. The information is so accessible through this quick video. And what they're doing with the content and the messaging is they're actually demystifying the loan application process. And they're talking about how accessible and easy it can be to apply for finance. And that addresses a major concern in implementation straight away. Really good example of building a great piece of content around a very important message. So switching from financial services to technology, you may remember one of the key factors for choosing a technology solution is security challenges. Telstra have recognized this very, very well. So what they do particularly well is that they lead with insights. One of the biggest issues called out by small businesses is the fact that they don't feel that they have the internal expertise or the know-how to upskill in security, especially when they compare themselves to their larger kind of enterprise companies. So Telstra does a really good job here of focusing on this. They use their insights as a basis for shared understanding. They give their knowledge to small businesses straight away in the content. And they help small businesses understand security challenges they face, and they position Telstra as a company who can help them in that. The content itself, really clean imagery, insights right there in the main image that you see. You can see that it's really, really built well and built for a LinkedIn feed. So a really, really good example. And then the final one, you're going to remember that one of the key factors that small businesses consider when they're choosing a vendor is, of course, brand perception. If you're familiar with a company's brand, then of course you are more likely to engage and to work with that company. So in this example, NAB do a really good job of creating content and campaigns designed just to shape brand perceptions. Right? They use short videos to highlight how they have shown up for their customers as their primary goal. There's no lead capture here. They're not asking for specific action. The key message is that they are here to support, and that is a great way of building brand and shaping brand perceptions. And so that is the third step around making your messaging relevant. The fourth and final step is, of course, leading with brand. So time and time again in this research, we found that brand and trust has come up as a key factor in choosing a vendor. So we know if we want to be successful in the short term in being chosen, we have to have a focus and a commitment to brand. But we also know, of course, that brand is the primary driver of long-term growth. As Bennett and Field here on the right-hand side of the screen, they say so well, brand building effects last longer and accumulate over time. Brand building is the main driver of long-term growth and profit. So leading with brand is important for the short term and the long term. And what we've done at LinkedIn is looked into this a little bit more. And really, when you look across the platform and when you look at companies that just run conversion campaigns versus those that run brand and conversion campaigns, what we found is that marketing theory and those quotes, they absolutely ring through. When we run both brand and acquisition, there is a 6x increase in the conversion rate. So the implication is pretty clear. We need to run both brand-oriented content and acquisition-oriented content in order for us to be successful in the small business space. And so that's really, really important. And that is it in terms of the 4 steps. If we click through to the next slide again, we've summarized the steps we want to take and the opportunity that is available right here. I mean, really to sum it up on one slide, and I know we're right in the last minute, so I think it's pretty good timing. The 4 steps we want to take is 1, seizing the unique opportunity, being always on in our campaigns to capitalize on that opportunity. Number 2, rethinking reach and consistently challenging ourselves to broaden and target our reach when it comes to small businesses. 3, making our messaging and our content really relevant to small business by building around the factors we've talked about: accessibility, security, implementation, brand. And then 4th and finally, when we're running campaigns, to think brand first and know and be confident that when we run brand as well as demand on platforms like LinkedIn, we see a much greater return. So those are your 4 steps, and that is where I'm going to leave you. I'll pass you back over to Sarah now to cap us off.
Thank you, Robin. That was unreal. I think I love that we have so many takeaways and actions that we can put into play. And what I really wanted us to get across to the group today is that this research not only gives us a really thorough understanding of the SMB landscape today, but also what are the priorities and barriers. Yes, we focus on FinServ and tech, but this gives us an understanding of your own businesses. It gives us an understanding of your current clients, but also prospective clients. And we wanted to provide this insights and research to you today to really position you as the consultants to your clients within your agency and really put you as the experts when you're trying to target SMBs. And I think this is great for any briefs that you're working on at the moment or future strategies, but also new business pitches as well. This is valuable insights and you are some of the first to see it. So it is very much hot off the press. We really appreciate your time today. Unfortunately, we don't have time to open up to Q&A now, but I hope that the team has been moderating throughout the session. If you have any specific questions off the back of today, please outreach to me. I'm going to share the extended presentation and Sam will share the recording with you post this session, and you'll have my contact details there. So if you did have any questions, please do reach out. But thank you so much to my co-presenters today. That was phenomenal. And thank you so much for joining us on a Monday Insights and Innovation. And thank you to Sam and Becky at the IMAA. We can't wait to chat to you all soon.
Great. Thank you guys so much. And thank you, LinkedIn, for your support of the IMAA. You guys are amazing.